The Land Before Time. I've watched every single movie. I only watched a few of the TV episodes, the ones where Ruby's always in. The ones that really stand out to me are the first one and the second one. Of course, I always enjoy watching my favorite dinosaurs on screen, the characters who I adopted as my imaginary friends growing up, and who I still use in a lot of my audio fanfictions. Of course, I made some very comedic and grown-up alterations to their personalities, but they were so memorable that even to this day, Sarah the Three-Horn still feels like a pushy and bossy friend who would be loyal to me to the end, and not afraid to speak her mind. Not Littlefoot, like Littlefoot got hooked on drugs and had to get clean and then enlisted to the military. But anyways, the point is, this franchise has gone on to live in my heart and to make me experience a warm sensation when another fellow Land Before Timer or LBTer speaks the forgotten language. So what made this movie so memorable? Dare I say it, even a rival to many Disney movies. The franchise starts with the heart-wrenching and later on heartwarming 1988 Land Before Time film by Don Bluth. It allows us to follow the journey of 5 different types of dinosaurs as they come together and put past their differences in the name of survival and a better tomorrow. You have Littlefoot the Apatosaurus, aka a young male longneck. I used to hate it when people call him Diplodocus. He obviously is not a Diplodocus, but I'm a little more forgiving now that I'm older. I can understand how some people might think so, if they don't know anything about dinosaurs, that is. Sarah, the Triceratops, the female three-horn. Ducky, the Saurolophus, also known as a swimmer. Her little adopted brother Spike, a young male Stegosaurus or Spiketail.
So much. I miss you too, Ellie.
Frick is up with the animations, though. The art style's a little rough around the edges with the later ones, but you know, geez. And Petrie, the Pteranodon, aka the Flyer. Oh, sorry. That's how he talks, though, for real. Against all odds, these dinosaurs, all members of completely different species, band together so they can survive. It's a whole bunch of messages in this movie, and it pulls your emotions in such a way that makes you feel what the characters are going through. When Littlefoot loses his mother, the scene, wow. It's right on par with The Lion King when Simba loses his father. Honestly, in my opinion, I think it's even more sad, to be honest, because Littlefoot is literally sitting there as his mother is dying. Simba sees his father die, and he goes down, his dad's already dead. But we get to see the relationship building between Littlefoot and his mom since his birth, from the very beginning. They were always together, and Littlefoot's mother felt more real when she spoke to Littlefoot than Mufasa did when he spoke to Simba. Now, granted, Mufasa is a powerful male, so he's going to speak differently, but I related more to Littlefoot and his mom because his mother spoke like a regular person. Littlefoot and his mother were not royalty. Neither were their parents. They are basically what would have been regular people. I gave Littlefoot's mother the name Diane, even though she's called Mama Longneck, but I just gave her the name Diane after Diane Ross, who performed the poignant and timeless song, If We Hold On Together. It was hard watching her go because she had such a soothing, maternal, and just really sweet personality. She loved Littlefoot more than anything. And not to mention, Littlefoot was supposed to have brothers and sisters, but I think their eggs got crushed in the beginning, and he was the last egg that was left. So he meant even more to her. It was also a lot more depressing because since she and her baby got separated from her parents, it's not like Littlefoot had a whole family of Pride Alliance to go back to. He was literally all alone. And you get to actually see him mourn his mother. The one thing I didn't like about The Lion King, and trust me, I love The Lion King with all my heart, but Simba got over his dad real quick, or we don't see him crying over his father. There's no mourning period. We just see him in the desert and then he's just lying down. And based on his visage, we can tell that he had been crying or he had been really depressed. We have to sit there with Littlefoot as he's watching his mom die, hoping that she's not dying, trying to get her to get up, just feeling hopeless as a kid who's losing their parent. And then after she dies, we have to sit with him as he's depressed. We see this little pteranodon thing, or whatever this is supposed to be, bringing him food, and he's not eating. We just see him completely change into a different person who's just totally lost all of his will to live because all he can feel is the pain of having left his mother. We even get to see at one point when he sees his shadow, and the shadow's distorted so it looks like a really big long neck, and he thinks it's his mom, and we get to see the joy that it's his mother, and he obviously was hallucinating through his depression because even when he's looking at his shadow, it's like he comes to all of a sudden and realizes that this is actually not his mom, it's his shadow, and we see him sink back into depression. That's freaking real, though. I've not seen that in a lot of cartoons, and this cartoon made us feel like Littlefoot really lost his mom, which he did. But that's how we would feel. We wouldn't just be like, help, and then we don't cry for the rest of the movie. Like, we see him, like, doesn't want to talk to anyone, doesn't want to think about anything, just lying out in the open, doesn't care if a sharp tooth comes. Like, he's just lost everything. He's lost the only thing that he's ever had closest to him. And we feel that poignantly through this movie. I don't think I've seen another animated movie that did this better, to be honest. The Lion King comes close. Bambi is there too, but they're not as close as what they did with The Land Before Time. Not to mention they did a really good job with putting the music to this movie because all the pieces that they chose fit so perfectly. Mind you, this was back at a time when they did cartoons right. Leading up to this part was when Littlefoot and his new friend Sarah, or well, they're not really friends because, you know, there was racism here, and they show this with the three-horn against the longnecks, and all the other creatures were kind of prejudiced towards one another. They kept to their own kind, and we know that Mr. Tops, who I called Mario Tops in my fanfiction, he's actually very racist. He's a lot more forgiving now, but he comes from a time leading from his parents where you're supposed to stick to your own kind. You're superior than everybody else. Three-horns are not supposed to be seen playing with longnecks. And we see that Sarah kind of adopts this because she is influenced by her father and by her family. So even when she's playing with Littlefoot, little kids will play with each other, but she still has some of that influence from her father while she's playing with him that, I'm better than you. I did love it in one of the later Land Before Time movies when Sarah cries because her dad is just frustrating her. I just love it so much. And that was something that I also related to a lot too, because she's like, Littlefoot's my friend. He'll always be my friend. And the dad's trying to explain to her, like, Sarah, and she's like, you just don't want me to have any fun. He's like, oh, but he comes around. Anyways, Littlefoot and his new associate are being hunted by a sharp tooth or a T-Rex, and we hear Littlefoot cry out for his mom, and then we see her transform from sweet Mama Longneck to badass Super Smash Brothers mother. The fight is really epic, the music is effective, and even when I see them fighting, and you know they're cartoons, I'm really hoping that nothing will happen. I'm scared for her, I'm scared for Littlefoot. It was also the first movie, so you didn't know what was going to happen. And even after all of this, the danger's still not over. I'm sure parents feel it because of the kids, and kids feel it because of the parents and because of the fear. When Sarah does her little signature cry out to her father, and to see them separated, wow, the narration, goosebumps. Then we remember that Littlefoot's mother had been badly injured from the fight with the Tyrannosaurus Rex. She only got up after she was fatally wounded to save Littlefoot when she heard that he was in danger. Notice how she saves both of them, even though there is a prejudice between them. And I don't think she feels that way. I think it's more on the three-horn side, but there are other longnecks that probably feel the same way too. She doesn't discriminate against the other kid. I don't think if Mr. Tops was in that situation that he would have saved Littlefoot. He would have just been like, screw that longneck, I'm saving my daughter. But we see the purity of her heart because she doesn't see, I'm not going to say color, she doesn't see lack of neck, whatever. Remember, she had already been lying down after her fight. She gets up with new vigor as a mother to protect her child. I also love how they weren't afraid to show a wound in blood in this cartoon. I wish they had that in the later versions, but that was so real and lifelike because we saw the wound on her neck. Realistically, this probably would have been more of a fatal wound. Maybe she had a few ribs that were broken. Maybe realistically, if it was an anime, we'd have seen all this blood pouring out, especially if the sharp tooth knocked off an artery that, spewed a lot of blood. For all we know, it was the earthquake. Maybe it was a combination of those things. I used to love Sarah's little cry. Dinosaurs were also more visceral because they made roaring noises. They didn't just talk. When they were distressed, Sarah's father roared. When Sarah's distressed, she makes that noise. All the drama and suspense while we watched the world transforming around the dinosaurs who were afraid. We actually get to see some die. In this scene right here, these dinosaurs flat out lose their life.
Families were cut in two. Littlefoot was separated from his grandparents.
Dude, those guys are dead. They dropped. They fell to their death. There were so many deaths on screen, which made this movie so badass. Later on that rainy night, unfortunately, Littlefoot's mother, Diane, as I call her, succumbs to her wounds. Littlefoot is calling out for her, and at first he can't find her until he sees her lying down on a rock. Mother! Oh my god, this is one of the most heart-wrenching scenes. I'm taking it back. In an animated film, this is the most heart-wrenching scene I have ever seen. When he says, please get up, and she replies, I'm afraid I can't. Wow. Just take a look at it and Feel the emotion. Even if you have never watched this movie, which you totally should, especially if you're a dinosaur fan, just think about the emotions that are evoked when you watch this scene. Feel them.
Oh,
Please get up.
I'm not sure I can, Littlefoot.
Yes, you can. Get up.
Look at his face. Oh my god. I feel like crying right now. Like the emotion on his face. His mother is dying right before his eyes. As another commenter says, this tops The Lion King and Bambi easy. Not only did she pass away on screen in front of her son before giving away a final few words of wisdom to him, she died for a multitude of reasons. Fatally wounded by a T-Rex, plus the shock of the following earthquake, and finally the bacterial infection from the Rex's bite sets in, and that's what kills her. Because we know that the bite alone wouldn't have been enough. Howling Wolf 518 says, the Bambi team, we're gonna kill the mother. Lion King team, screw you, we're gonna kill the father, then have his son find the body. Land Before Time team, screw both of you, we're gonna kill the mother, but have her son find her still alive, then have him watch as she dies. Everyone else just sits down and is like, they just fold their arms like, yeah, you win, dude. The music that is used here and what she's telling him and the way she's telling it to him, she knows she's not going to make it. She knows she's dying. She knows she only has minutes left with her son. And the only thing that she can do to protect him now is to remind him how to get to that paradise place. He might not make it. He's totally alone. But she's just hoping that he'll survive.
Dear sweet Littlefoot, do you remember the way to the Great Valley?
I guess so. But why do I have to know you're gonna be with me?
I'll be with you, even if you can't see me.
What do you mean if I can't see you? I can always see you.
Littlefoot, let your heart guide you. It whispers, so listen closely.
Mother? Mother?
Oh my god. Okay, the reason why I showed that whole clip, or at least that piece of the clip, I didn't want to cut in the middle because that would take away from it. This is how you make a movie. This is how you make a movie. Notice we get her talking to her son and trying to guide him, trying to console him as she's leaving. She knows the best thing she can do for him is to tell him that she's not really gone. Because if she says, like what Mufasa said, oh, we're all connected and I'm watching, from way up there. He's too little to understand that. And he knows, I think Littlefoot also knows that his mother is going to die. But when she goes silent and he calls out to her, and then the camera slowly pans backwards, zooms out of the scene. So we can't see Littlefoot, we just see the dead body. We get an example of how it must feel to be totally alone. Your world is closing down around you. Everything is just being pushed into the background while you're surrounded by darkness and rain and sadness. This is the best sad movie or sad scene of a parent dying that I've seen in an animated film ever. Coupled with the music that is done in this movie, everything just fits so well. And this is one of the major things that makes The Land Before Time so memorable. People remember it because they remember his mother dying. I think also one of the hardest parts that made it feel more real is following the scene when she dies. We see Littlefoot crying. As a matter of fact, an older dinosaur finds him, and, has to comfort him. I think he's an Ankylosaurus. But he finds Littlefoot and comforts him, and he's saying how much he misses her, and we're getting to see him actually cry. I didn't see Simba cry after he first found his dad, and it didn't even feel as real as it felt with Littlefoot. And I remember this, even the first Land Before Time, from all these years ago that I've seen it, this is what sticks out to me. We're not given his mother's death and then right after he's like, all right, I guess I better go now. No, we actually feel like he's alone. He's crying. And after that, he's still depressed. Like that whole part, they took that time to build the character and to allow us to feel as though he's really an actual real character. That's what made The Land Before Time so memorable. After that, we get to see him slowly meet Ducky and Sarah and the others, and we even get to see those characters being built upon. How sad they are. They all connect to each other because they're all facing the same thing. They have been chased after. They are victims of the earthquake and the separation from their families. You know, the best chance of survival is to stick together, and that no one's there to tell them that they can't play with each other because they're a different species. Children instinctively know that they're supposed to stick together so that they can utilize each other's best qualities to enhance their survival, or their chances of survival. We get to see the struggle between their personalities, like Sarah and Littlefoot clash because they both have leader-like personalities, and they even fight. And that's what kids really do. It's real. This is a cartoon, but it's basically real, except that it just has the skin of dinosaurs and an animation. And that's why it felt real. It didn't feel like we were having a show put on for us. I felt like I was watching real characters from like behind a window or something. As the film progresses, we see their personalities mesh with each other. Scenes I loved was seeing Sarah cry when she acted all bossy, but then when she was by herself, she was crying because we get to see that she really is sensitive and she wears this tough exterior. We get to see how sweet Ducky is and Petrie's personality and Littlefoot getting upset with Petrie and snapping at him. They're real personalities. Whoever directed this movie, I know it was by Don Bluth, but there were other directors as well. I think there was like 4 of them. But whoever was the one responsible for going over again and making sure these characters felt real, wow, these people are iconic. They did an amazing job. They were all adults, but they understood how kids behave. They didn't write kid characters like adults. They wrote them like kids. They touched on a world being better when all the other different species come together and put aside their differences. We see that carry on over into the later movies. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, the sense of danger, because we really feel like they're in danger whenever Sharptooth or something comes along. In the later movies, they make everything a lot more light than they did in the first movie. In this one, you felt that. We felt their quarrels, we felt their disagreements, and at its core, at its root, this film is so deep that it stands the tests of time. Wow, and Jack Horner's music. This movie is so wonderful. I will always go back, and when I watch The Land Before Time, especially the first movie, I'll always feel like I'm watching it for the first time. This will always be one of the most real, touching, angst-ridden, and emotionally deep animated films I've ever seen. I think coupled with a narration that was dubbed over this film, that helped with the music drive home every scene, every emotion, every action, every slow pan or zoom out of the camera to let the scene settle in. That's why it was memorable, because The Land Before Time wasn't just entertainment. It was a window into the lives of what could have very well been real people. Anyways, what is your most memorable moment about Land Before Time? What is your best or favorite Land Before Time movie? Let us know in the comments. And thanks so much for watching. This has been Altiori. You ask, we answer. All right, I'm done, for real. Go see this movie if you haven't seen it. Please, it's worth it, trust me.